Novel The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, chapter number 9. Sitting in the middle of my room the next morning, I ripped open box after box of presents. I don't know why I even bothered, since I just gave them a joyless glance and pitched them to the corner of the room. The pile was growing there: a Polaroid camera, a transistor radio, an elaborate electric train set, and several sealed envelopes containing cash. I knew I had never spent the money or listened the radio, and the electric train would never trundle down its track in my room. I did not want any of it. It was all blood money. Baba would have never thrown me a party like that if I had not won the tournament. Baba gave me two presents. One was sure to become the envy of every kid in the neighborhood: a brand new Schwinn Stingray, the king of all bicycles. Only a handful of kids in all of Kabul owned a new Stingray, and now I was one of them. It had high-rise handlebars with black rubber grips and its famous banana seat. The spokes were gold-colored and the steel frame body red, like a candy apple or blood. Any other kid would have hopped on the bike immediately and taken it for a full-block skid. I might have done the same a few months ago. "You like it?" Baba said, leaning in the doorway to my room. I gave him a sheepish grin and a quick thank you. I wished I could have mustered more. "We could go for a ride," Baba said, an invitation, but only a half-hearted one. "Maybe later. I am little tired," I said. "Sure," Baba said. "Baba?" "Yes, thanks for the fireworks," I said. "A thank you, but only a half-hearted one." "Get some rest," Baba said, walking towards his room. The other present Baba gave me, and he didn't wait around for me to open this one, was a wrist watch. It had a blue face with gold hands in the shape of lightning bolts. I didn't even try it on. I tossed it on the pile of toys in the corner. The only gift I did not toss on that mound was Rahim Khan's leather-bound notebook. That was the only one that didn't feel like blood money. I sat on the edge of my bed, turned the notebook in my hand, thought about what Rahim Khan had said about Humaira, how his father's dismissing her had been for the best in the end. She would have suffered like the times Kaka Hamayo's projector got stuck on the same slide. The same image kept flashing in my mind over and over. Hassan, his head downcast, serving drinks to Asif and Wali. Maybe it would be for the best. Listen his sufferings and mine too. Either way, this much had become clear: one of us had to go. Later that afternoon, I took the Schwinn for its first and last spin. I paddled around the block a couple of times and came back. I rolled up the driveway to the backyard where Hassan and Ali were cleaning up the mess from the last night party. Paper cups, crumbled napkins, and empty bottles of soda littered the yard. Ali was folding the chairs, setting them along the wall. He saw me and waved. "Salam, Ali," I said, waving back. He held up a finger, asking me to wait, and walked to his living quarters. A moment later, he emerged with something in his hand. "The opportunity never presented itself last night for Hassan and me to give you this," he said, handing me a box. "It's modest and not worthy of you, Amir Agha, but we hope you like it. Still, happy birthday." A lump was rising in my throat. "Thank you, Ali," I said. "I wish they hadn't bought me anything." I opened the box and found a brand new Shahnama, a hardback with glossy colored illustrations beneath the passages. Here was Ferengis gazing at her newborn son, Kai Khosrow. There was Afrasiab riding his horse, sword drawn, leading his army, and of course Rustam inflicting a mortal wound onto his son, the warrior Sorab. "It's beautiful," I said. Hassan said, "Your copy was old and raged, and some of the pages were missing." Ali said, "Ali, all the pictures are hand-drawn in this one, with pen and ink," he added proudly, eyeing a book neither he nor his son could read. "It's lovely," I said, and it was, and I suspected not inexpensive either. I wanted to tell Ali it was not the book, but who was unworthy. I hopped back on the bicycle. "Thanks, Hassan, for me," I said. I ended up tossing the book on the heap of gifts in the corner of my room, but my eyes kept going back to it, so I buried it at the bottom before I went to bed that night. I asked Baba if he had seen my new watch anywhere. The next morning, I waited in my room for Ali to clear the breakfast table in the kitchen, waited for him to do the dishes, wipe the counters. I looked out my bedroom window and waited until Ali and Hassan went grocery shopping to the bazaar, pushing the empty wheelbarrows in front of them. Then I took a couple of the envelopes of cash from the pile of gifts and my watch and tiptoed out. I paused before Baba's study and listened in. He had been in there all morning making phone calls. He was talking to someone now about a shipment of rugs due to arrive next week. I went downstairs, crossed the yard, and entered Ali and Hassan's living quarters by the locust tree. I lifted Hassan's mattress and planted my new watch and a handful of Awani bills under it. I waited another 30 minutes. Then I knocked on Baba's door and told what I hoped would be the last in a long line of shameful lies. Through my bedroom window, I watched Ali and Hassan push the wheelbarrows, loaded the meat, naan, fruit, and vegetable up the driveway. I saw Baba emerge from the house and walk up to Ali. Their mouth moved over words I could not hear. Baba pointed to the house and Ali nodded. They separated. Baba came back to the house. Ali followed Hassan to their hut. A few moments later, Baba knocked my room. Come to my office, he said. We are all going to sit down and settle this thing. I went to the Baba's study, sat in one of the leather sofas. It was 30 minutes or more before Hassan and Ali joined us. They both been crying. I could tell from their red puffed up eyes. They stood before Baba hand in hand, and I wondered how and when I would become capable of causing this kind of pain. Baba came right out and asked, Did you steal that money? Did you steal Amir's watch, Hassan? Hassan's reply was a single word, delivered in a thin, happy voice. Yes. I flinched like I had been slapped. My heart sank and I almost blurted out the truth. Then I understood this was Hassan's final sacrifice for me. If he had said no, Baba would have believed him because we all knew Hassan never lied. And if Baba believed him, then I would be the accused. I would have to explain and I would be revealed for what I really was. Baba would never ever forgive me, and that led to another understanding. Hassan knew I had seen everything in that alley, that I had stood there and done nothing. He knew I had betrayed him, and yet he was rescuing me once again. Maybe for the last time, I loved him in that moment, loved him more than I had ever loved anyone. And I wanted to tell them all that I was the snake in the grass, the monster in the lake. I was not worthy of this sacrifice. I was a liar, cheater, a thief, and I would have told, except that a part of me was glad that this would all be over with soon. Baba would dismiss them. There would be some pain, but life. There would be a some pain, but life would move on. I wanted that to move on, to forget, to start with a clean slate. I wanted to be able to breathe again. Except Baba stunned me by saying, I forgive you. Forgive? But theft was the one unforgivable sin, the common denominator of all sins. When you kill a man, you steal a life. You steal his wife's right to her husband, rob his children of a father. When you tell a lie, you steal someone's right to the truth. When you cheat, you steal the right to fairness. There is no act more wretched than stealing. Had not Baba sat me on his lap and said those words to me, then how could he just forgive Hassan? And if Baba could forgive that, then why could not he forgive me for not being the sons he would always wanted? Why? We are leaving, Aga Sahib, Ali said. What? Baba said, the color draining from his face. We can't live here anymore, Ali said. But I forgive him, Ali. Didn't you hear? Said Baba. Life here is impossible for us now. Aga Sahib, we are leaving. Ali drew. Hassan to him curled his arm around his son's shoulder. It was a protective gesture, and I knew whom Ali was protecting him from. Ali glanced my way, and in his cold, unforgiving look, I saw that Hassan had told him. He had told him everything about what Asif and his friends had done to him, about the kite, about me. Strangely, I was glad that someone knew me for who I really was. I was tired of pretending. I don't care about the money or the watch, Baba said, his arms open, palms up. I don't understand why you are doing this. What do you mean impossible? I am sorry, Aga Sahib, but our bags are already packed. We have made our decisions. Baba stood up. a sheen of grief across his face. Ali, haven't I provided well for you? Haven't I been good to you and Hassan? You are the brother I never had, Ali. You know that. Please don't do this. Don't make this even more difficult than it already is. Agha Sahib, Ali said, his mouth twitched, and for a moment I thought I saw a grimace. That was when I understood the depth of the pain I had caused, the blackness of the grief I had brought onto everyone, that not even Ali's paralyzed face could mask his sorrow. I forced myself to look at Hassan, but his head was downcast, his shoulders slumped, his fingers shriveling loose string on the hem of his shirt. Baba was pleading now. At least tell me why. I need to know. Ali didn't tell Baba, just as he didn't protest when Hassan confessed to the stealing. I will never really know why, but I could imagine the two of them in that dim little hut weeping, Hassan pleading him not to give me away. But I could not imagine the restraint must have taken Ali to keep that promise. Will you drive us to the bus station? I forbid you to do this. Baba bellowed. Do you hear me? I forbid you. Respectfully, you can't forbid me anything, Agha Sahib, Ali said. We don't work for you anymore. Where will you go? Baba asked. His voice was breaking. Hazara Jat. To your cousin? Yes. Will you take us to the bus station, Agha Sahib? Then I saw Baba do something I had never seen him do before. He cried. It scared me a little, seeing a grown man sob. Fathers were not supposed to cry. Please, Baba was saying, but Ali had already turned to the door, Hassan trailing him. I will never forget the way Baba said that, the pain in his plea, the fear. In Kabul, it rarely rained in the summer. Blue skies stood tall, and far the sun like a branding iron searing the back of your neck. Creeks where Hassan and I skipped, stones all spring turned dry, and rickshaws stirred dust when they sputtered by. People went to the mosque for their 10 rakat of noontime prayer, and they retreated to whatever shade they could find to nap in, waiting for the cool for early evening. Summer mean long school days, waiting in tightly packed, poorly ventilated classroom, learning to recite ayats from the Quran, struggling with those tongue-twisting exotic Arabic words. It meant catching flies in your palm while the mullah droned on, and a hot breeze brought with it the smell of shit from the outhouse across the schoolyard, churning dust around the lawn rickety basketball hoop. But it rained the afternoon. Baba took Ali and Hassan to the bus station. Thunderheads rolled in, painted the sky iron grey. Within minutes, sheets of rain were sweeping in, the steady hiss of falling water swelling in my ears. Baba had offered to drive them to Bamiyan himself, but Ali refused. Through the blurry rain-soaked window of my bedroom, I watched Ali haul the lone suitcase, carrying all of their belongings, to Baba's car, idling outside the gates. Hassan lugged his mattress, rolled tightly and tied with a rope, on his back. He had left all of his toys behind in the empty shack. I discovered them the next day, piled in a corner just like the birthday presents in my room. Slithering beads of rain sluiced down my windows. I saw Baba slam the trunk shut. Already drenched, he walked to the driver's side, leaned in and said something to Ali in the back seat. Perhaps one last ditch effort to change his mind. They talked that way a while, Baba getting soaked, stooping one arm on the roof of the car. But when he straightened, I saw in his slumming shoulder that the life I had known since I had been born was over. Baba slid in. The Hindi movies Hassan and I used to watch, this was the part where I would run outside, my bare feet splashing rainwater. I would chase the car, screaming for it to stop. I could pull Hassan out of the back seat and tell him I was sorry, so sorry, my tears mixing with the rainwater. We could hug in the downpour, but this was not a Hindi movie. I was sorry, but I didn't cry. I didn't chase the car. I watched Baba's car pull away from the curb, taking with it the person whose first spoken word had been my name. I caught my final blurry glimpse of Hassan slumped in the back seat before Baba turned left at the street corner where we had played marbles so many times. I stepped back and all I saw was rain through window panes that looked like melting silver. Chapter number 10. March 1981. A young woman sat across from us. She was dressed in an olive green dress with a black shawl wrapped tightly around her face against the night chill. She burst into a prayer every time the truck jerked or stumbled into the pothole. Her Bismillah, speaking with each of the truck's shudders and jolts. Her husband, a burly man in baggy pants and sky blue turban, cradled an infant in one arm and thumped prayer beads with his free hand. His lips moved in silent prayer. There were others in all, about a dozen, including Baba and me, sitting with our suitcases between our legs, cramped with these strangers in the tarpaulins covered cab of an old Russian truck. My innards had been roiling since we had left Kabul just after 2 in the morning. Baba's never said so, but I knew he saw my car sickness as yet another of my array of weakness. I saw it on his embarrassed face. The couple of times my stomach had clenched so badly I had moaned. When he burly guy with the beads, that the praying woman's husband, asked if I was going to get sick, I said I might. Baba looked away. The man lifted his corner of the tarpaulin cover and rapped on the driver's window. Asked him to stop, but the driver, Karim, a scrawny, dark-skinned man with havoc-bone features and a pencil-thin mustache, shook his head. We are too close to Kabul, he shouted back. Tell him to have a strong stomach. Baba grumbled something under his breath. I wanted to tell him I was sorry, but suddenly I was salivating, the back of my throat tasting bile. I turned around, lifted the tarpaulin and threw up over the side of moving truck. Behind me, Baba was apologizing to the other passengers as if car sickness was a crime, as if you were not supposed to get sick when you were 18. I threw up 2 more times before Karim agreed to stop, mostly so I would not stink up his vehicle, the instrument of his livelihood. Karim was a people smuggler. It was a pretty lucrative business than driving people out of Shorwai occupied Kabul to the relative safety of Pakistan. He was taking us to Jalalabad, about 170 kilometers southeast of Kabul, where his brother Tour, who had a bigger truck, second convoy of refugees, was waiting to drive us across the Khyber Pass and into Peshawar. We were a few kilometers west of Mahipar Falls when Karim pulled to the side of the road. Mahipar, which means flying fish, was a high summit with a precipitous drop overlooking to the hydro plant the Germans had built for the Afghanistan back in 1967. Baba and I had driven over the summit countless times on our way to Jalalabad, the city of cypress trees and sugarcane fields where once vacationed in the winter. I hopped down the back of the truck and lurched to the dusty embankment on the side of the road, my mouth filled with saliva, a sign of the retching that was yet to come. I stumbled to the edge of the cliff overlooking the deep valley that was shrouded in the darkness. I stooped, hands on my kneecaps, and waited for the bile. Somewhere a branch snapped. An owl hooted. The wind, soft and cold, clicked through tree branches and stirred the bushes that sprinkled the slope, and from below the faint sound of water tumbling through the valley. Standing on the shoulder of the road, I thought of the way we had left the house where I had lived my entire life, if we were going out for a bite, dishes smeared with kofta piled in the kitchen sink, laundry in the wicker basket in the foyer, beds unmade, Baba's business suits hanging in the closet, tapestries still hung on the wall of the living room, and my mother's books still crowded the shelf in Baba's study. The sign of our movement was subtle. My parents' wedding picture was gone, as was the grainy photographs of my grandfather and King Nadir Shah standing over the dead deer. A few items of clothing were missing from the closets. The leather-bound notebook Rahim Khan had given me 5 years earlier was gone. In the morning, Jalaluddin, our 7th servant in 5 years, would probably think we had gone out for a stroll or a drive. We had not told him you could not trust anyone in Kabul anymore for a few fee or under threat. People told on each other, neighbor on neighbor, child on parent, brother on brother, servant on master, friend on friend. I thought of the singer Ahmad Zahir who had played the accordion at my 13th birthday. He had gone for a drive with some friends and someone had later found his body on the side of the road. A bullet in the back of his head. The Rafiqs, the comrades were everywhere and tells that they had split Kabul into two groups, those who eavesdrop and those who did not. The tricky part was that no one knew who belonged to which. A casual remark to the tailor while getting fitted for a suit might land you in the dungeons of Polycharchy. Complain about the curfew to the butcher, and next thing you knew, you were behind bars, staring at the muzzle end of a Kalashnikov. Even at the dinner table in the privacy of their home, people had to speak in a calculated manner. The Rafiqs were in the classrooms too. They had taught children to spy on their parents, what to listen for, whom to tell. What was I doing on this road in the middle of the night? I should have been in bed, under my blanket, a book with dog-eared pages at my side. This had to be dream, had to be. Tomorrow morning I would wake up, peek out the window, no grim-faced Russian soldiers patrolling the sidewalk, no tanks rolling up and down the street of my city, their turrets swearing like accusing fingers, no rubble, no curfews, no Russian army personal carriers waving through the bazaars. Then behind me I heard Baba and Kareem discussing the arrangement in Jalalabad over a smoke. Kareem was assuring Baba that his brother had a big truck of excellent and first class quality and that the track to Peshawar would to be very routine. He could take you there with his closed eyes. Kareem said I overheard him telling Baba how he and his brother knew the Russian and Afghan soldier who worked the checkpoints, how they had set up a mutually profitable arrangement. This was no dream. As if on cue, a MiG suddenly screamed past our head. Kareem tossed his cigarette and produced a handgun from his waist, pointing it to the sky and making shooting gestures. He spat and cursed at the MiG. I wondered where Hassan was. Then the inevitable. I vomited on the tangle of weeds, my retching and groaning drowned in the deafening roar of the MiG. We pulled up to the checkpoint at Mahipur 20 minutes later. Our driver let the truck idle and hopped down to greet the approaching voices. Feet crushed gravel, words were exchanged brief and hushed. A flick of a lighter, Spasiba. Another flick of the lighter. Someone laughed, a shrill cackling sound that made me jump. Baba's hand clamped down on my thigh. The laughing man broke into song, a slurring off-key rendition and an old Afghani song delivered with a thick Russian accent. Ahista bolo, Mahman, ahista bolo. Go slowly, my lovely moon, go slowly. Boot heels clicked on asphalt. Someone flung open the tarpaulin hanging over the back of the truck and three faces peered in. One was Kareem, the other two were soldier, one Afghan, the other a grinning Russian face like a bulldog, cigarette dangling from the side of his mouth. Behind them, a bone-colored moon hung in the sky. Kareem and the Afghan soldier had a brief exchange in Pashto. I caught a little of it, something about Tour and his bad luck. The Russian soldier thrust his face into the rear of the truck. He was humming the wedding song and drumming his finger on the edge of the tailgate. Even in the dim light of the moon, I saw the glazed look in his eyes as they skipped from the passenger to passenger. Despite the cold sweat streamed from his brow, his eyes settled on the young woman wearing the black shawl. He spoke in Russian to Kareem without taking his eyes off her. Kareem gave a curt reply in Russian, which the soldier returned with an even curter retort. The Afghan soldier said something too in a low, reasoning voice, but the Russian soldier shouted something that made the other two flinch. I could feel Baba tightening up next to me. Kareem cleared his throat, dropped his head, said the soldier wanted a half hour with the lady in the back of the truck. The young woman pulled the shawl down over her face, burst into the tears. The toddler sitting in her husband's lap started crying too. The husband's face had become as pale as the moon hovering above. He told Kareem to ask Mr. Soldier Sahib to show a little mercy. Maybe he had a sister or a mother. Maybe he had a wife too. The Russian listened to Kareem and barked a series of words It's his price for letting us pass, Karim said. He could not bring himself to look the husband in the eye. But we have paid a fair price already. He is getting paid good money, the husband said. Karim and the Russian soldier spoke. He says every price has a tax. That was when Baba stood up. It was my turn to clamp a hand on his thigh, but Baba pried it loose, snatched his leg away. When he stood, he eclipsed the moonlight. I want you to ask this man something, Baba said. He said it to Karim but looked directly at the Russian soldier. Ask him where his shame is. They spoke. He says, this is a war. There is no shame in the war. Tell him he's wrong. War does not negate decency. It demands it even more than in times of peace. Do you have to always be the hero? I thought, my heart fluttering. Can't you just let it go for once? But I knew he could not. It was not in his nature. The problem was his nature was going to get us all killed. The Russian soldier said something to Karim, a smile creasing his lips. Agha Sahib, Karim said, these Rusi are not like us. They understand nothing about respect, honor. What did he say? He says he will enjoy putting a bullet in you almost as much as. Karim trailed off but nodded his head toward the young woman who had caught the guard's eye. The soldier flicked his unfinished cigarette and unholstered his handgun. So this is where Baba dies, I thought. This is how it's going to happen in my head. I said a prayer I had learned in school. Tell him I will take 1,000 of his bullets before I let this indecency take place, Baba said. My mind flashed to that winter day 6 years ago, me peering around the corner in the alley, Kamal and Wali holding Hassan down, Asif's muscles clenching and unclenching, his hips thrusting back and forth. Some hero I had been fretting about the kite. Sometimes I too wondered if I was really Baba's son. The bulldog-faced Russian raised his gun. Baba, sit down please, I said, tugging at his sleeve. I think he really means to shoot you. Baba slapped my hand away. Haven't I taught you anything? He snapped. He turned to the grinning soldier. Tell him he could better kill me good with that first shot, because if I don't go down, I am tearing him to pieces. God damn his father. The Russian soldier's grin never fluttered when he heard the translation. He clicked the safety on the gun, pointed the barrel to Baba's chest, heart pounding in my throat. I buried my face in my hands. The gun roared. It's done. Then I am 18 and alone. I have no one left in the world. Baba's dead and now I have to bury him. Where do I bury him? Where do I go after that? But the whirlwind of half-thoughts spinning in my head came to halt when I cracked my eyelids, found Baba still standing. I saw a second Russian soldier with the others. It was from the muzzle of his upturned gun that smoke swirled. The soldier who had meant to shoot Baba had already holstered his weapon. He was shuffling his feet. I had never felt more like crying and laughing at the same time. The second Russian officer, grey-haired and heavy-set, spoke to us in the broken Farsi. He apologized for his comrade behavior. Russians sent them here to fight, he said, but they are just boys, and when they come there, they find the player of drug. He gave the younger officer the rueful look of a father, exasperated with his misbehaving son. This one is attached drug now. I tried to stop him. He waved us off. Moment later, we were pulling away. I heard a laugh and then the first soldier's wife, slurry and off-key, singing the old wedding song. We rode in silence for about 15 minutes before the young woman's husband suddenly stood and did something I had seen many others do before him. He kissed Baba's hand. Tour's bad luck, hadn't I overheard that in snippet of conversation back at Mahipur. We rolled into Jalalabad about an hour before sunrise. Karim ushered us quickly from the truck into a one-story house at the intersection of two dirt roads lined with flat one-story homes, acacia trees and closed shops. I pulled the collar of my coat against the chill as we hurried into the house, dragging our belongings. For some reason, I remember smelling radishes. Once he had us inside the dimly lit bare living room, Karim locked the front door, pulled the tattered sheet that passed from curtains. Then he took a deep breath and gave us the bad news. His brother Toor could not take us to Peshawar. It seemed his truck's engine had blown the week before and Toor was still waiting for parts. Last week, someone exclaimed, "If you knew this, why did you bring us here?" I caught a flurry of movement out of the corner of my eye, then a blur of something zipping across the room, and the next thing I saw was Kareem slammed against the wall, his sandaled feet dangling 2 feet above the floor. Wrapped around his neck were Baba's hand. "I will tell you why," Baba snapped. "Because he got paid for his leg off the trip. That's all they cared about." Kareem was making guttural, choking sounds. Spittle dripped from the corner of his mouth. "Put him down, Aga. You are killing him," one of the passengers said. It's what I intend to do," Baba said. What none of the other in the room knew was that Baba was not joking. Kareem was turning red and kicking his legs. Baba kept choking him until the young mother, the one the Russian officer had fancied, begged him to stop. Kareem collapsed on the floor and rolled around fighting for air when Baba finally let go. The room fell silent. Less than 2 hours ago, Baba had volunteered to take bullet for the honor of a woman he did not even know. Now he would almost choked a man to death. Would have done it cheerfully if not for the pleas of that same woman. Something thumped next door. No, not next door, below. "What's that?" someone asked. The others, Kareem panted between labored breaths. "In the basement." "How long have they been waiting?" Baba said, sending over Kareem. 2 weeks. "I thought you said the truck broke down last week." Kareem rubbed his throat. "It might have been the week before," he croaked. "How long?" "What? How long for the parts?" Baba roared. Kareem flinched but said nothing. I was glad for the darkness. I didn't want to see the murderous look on Baba's face. The stench of something dank like mildew bludgeoned my nostrils. The moment Kareem opened the door that led down the creaky steps to the basement, we descended in single file. The steps groaned under Baba's weight. Standing in the cold basement, I felt watched by eyes blinking in the dark. I saw shapes huddled around the room, their silhouette thrown on the walls by the dim light of a pair of kerosene lamps. A low murmur buzzed through the basement. Beneath it, the sound of water drops trickling somewhere, and something else, a scratching sound. Baba sighed behind me and dropped the bag. Kareem told us it should be a matter of couple of short days before the truck was fixed. Then we would be on our way to Peshawar on the freedom, on to safety. The basement was our home for the next week, and by the third night I discovered the source of scratching sounds: rats. Once my eyes adjusted to the dark, I counted about 30 refugees in that basement. We sat shoulder to shoulder along the walls, ate crackers, bread with dates, apples. That first night all the men prayed together. One of the refugees asked Baba why he was not joining them. "God is going to save us all. Why don't you pray to him?" Baba snorted a pinch of his snuff, stretched his legs. "What will save us in 8 cylinders and a good carburetor?" That silenced the rest of them for good about the matter of God. It was later that first night when I discovered that 2 of the people hiding with us were Kamal and his father. That was shocking enough, seeing Kamal sitting in the basement just a few feet away from me. But when he and his father came over to our side of the room and I saw Kamal's face, really saw it. He had withered. There was simply no other word for his eyes gave me a hollow look, and no recognition at all registered in them. His shoulders hunched and his cheeks sagged like they were too tired to cling to the bone beneath. His father, who had owned a movie theater in Kabul, was telling Baba how 3 months before a stray bullet had struck his wife in the temple and killed her. Then he told Baba about Kamal. I caught only snippets of it. Should have never let him go alone. Always so handsome, 4 of them tried to fight. God took him, bleeding down there. His pants doesn't talk anymore, just stares. There would be no truck, Kareem told us after we had spent a week in the rat-infested basement. The truck was beyond repair. There is another option, Kareem said, his voice rising and the groans. His cousin owned a fuel truck and had smuggled people with it a couple of times. He was here in Jalalabad and could probably fit us all. Everyone except an elderly couple decided to go. We left that night, Baba and I, Kamal and his father, the others, Kareem and his cousin, a square-faced balding man named Aziz helped us to get into the fuel tank. One by one, we mounted the idling truck's rear deck, climbed the rear access ladder, and slid down into the tank. I remember Baba climbed halfway up the ladder, hopped back down, and fished the snuff box from his pocket. He emptied the box and picked up a handful of dirt from the middle of the unpaved road. He kissed the dirt, poured it into the box, stored the box in his breast pocket next to his heart. Panic. You open your mouth, open it so wide your jaws creak. You order your lungs to draw air. Now you need air, need it now, but your airways ignore you. The collapse, tighten, squeeze, and suddenly you are breathing through a drinking straw. Your mouth closes and your lips purse, and all you can manage is a strangled croak. Your hands wriggle and shake. Somewhere a dam has cracked open and flood of cold sweet spills drenches your body. You want to scream, you would if you could, but you have to breath to scream. Panic. The basement had been dark, the fuel tank was pitch black. I looked right, left, up, down, waved my hand before my eyes, didn't see so much as a hint of movement. I blinked again. Nothing at all. The air was not right. It was too thick, almost solid. Air was not supposed to be solid. I wanted to reach out with my hands, crush the air into the little pieces, stuff them down my windpipe, and the stench of gasoline. My eyes stung from the fumes like someone had peeled my lids back and rubbed a lemon on them. My nose caught fire, and each breath you could die in place like this. I thought a scream was coming. And then a small miracle. Baba tugged at my sleeve and something glowed green in the dark light. Baba's wrist watch. I kept my eyes glued to those fluorescent green hands. I was so afraid I had lost them. I didn't dare blink. Slowly, I became aware of my surroundings. I heard groans and muttered prayers. I heard a baby cry, its mother muted, soothing. Someone retched, someone else cursed. The shore away, the truck bounced side to side, up and down, heads banged against metal. Think of something good, Baba said in my ear. Something happy, something good, something happy. I let my mind wander. I let it come. Friday afternoon in Pagman, an open field of grass pickled with mulberry trees in blossom. Hassan and I stand ankle deep in the untamed grass. I am tugging on the line, the spool spinning in Hassan's calloused hands. Our eyes stand up to the kite in the sky. Not a word passes between us, not because we have nothing to say, but because we don't have to say anything. That's how it is between people who are each other's first memories, people who have fed from the same. A breeze stirs the grass, and Hassan lets the spool roll. The kite spins deep, steadies. Our twin shadows dance on the rippling grass. From somewhere over the low brick wall at the other end of the field, we hear chatter and laughter and the chirping of a water fountain and music. Something old and familiar. I think it's Yah Mola on the rhubarb string. Someone calls our names over the wall, says it's time for tea and cake. I did not remember what month that was or what year even. I only knew the memory lived in me, a perfectly encapsulated morsel of a good past, a brushstroke of a color on the grey, barren canvas that our lives had become. The rest of that ride is scattered bits and pieces of memory that come and go, most of it sounds and smells, mix roaring past our head. Staccato of the gunfire, a donkey bearing nearby, the jingling of bells and mewing of sheep, gravel crushed under the truck's tire, a baby wailing in the dark, the stench of a gasoline, vomit and shit. What I remember next in the blinding light of early morning as I climbed out of the fuel tank, I remember turning my face up to the sky, squinting, breathing like the world was running out of air. I lay on the side of the dirt road next to a rocky trench, looked up to the grey morning sky, thankful for air, thankful for light, thankful to be alive. We are in Pakistan, Amir, Baba said. He was standing over me. Kareem says he will call for a bus to take us to Peshawar. I rolled onto my chest, still laying on the cool dirt, and saw our suitcases on the either side of Baba's feet. Through the upside down between his legs, I saw the truck idling on the side of the road, the other refugees climbing down the rear ladder. Beyond that, the dirt road unrolled through fields that were like leaden sheets under the grey sky and disappeared behind a line of bowl-shaped hills. Along the way, it passed a small village strung out atop a sun-baked slope. My eyes returned to our suitcases. They made me sad for Baba. After everything he had built, planned, fought for, fretted our dreamed of, this was the summation of his life: one disappointing son and two suitcases. Someone was screaming, not screaming, wailing. I saw the passengers huddled in a circle, heard their urgent voices. Someone said the word fumes, someone else said it too. The wail turned into the throat-ripping screech. Baba and I hurried to the pack of onlookers and pushed our way through them. Kamal's father was sitting cross-legged in the center of the circle, rocking back and forth, kissing his son's ashen face. He won't breath, my boy won't breath. He was crying. Kamal's lifeless body lay on his father's lap, his right hand uncurled and limp, bounced to the rhythm of his father's sobs. My boy, he won't breath. Allah help me breath. Baba knelt beside him and curled an arm around his shoulder, but Kamal's father shoved him away and longed for Kareem, who was standing nearby with his cousin. What happened next was too fast and too short to be called a scuffle. Kareem uttered a surprised cry and backpedaled. I saw an arm swing, a leg kick. A moment later, Kamal's father was standing with Kareem's gun in his hand. Don't shoot me, Kareem cried. But before any of us could say or do anything, Kamal's father shoved the barrel in his own mouth. I will never forget the echo of the blast, or the flash of the light and the spray of red. I doubled over again and dry heaved on the side of the road.